to start. Thank you, George.
Please allow me to open the second panel of this conference, Opportunities in the Black Sea Region for the Energy Cooperation, Supply, Diversification. Alături de noi avem pe excelența sa, domnul Virgil Popescu, ministrul...
We have with us His Excellency Mr. Virgil Popescu, Minister of Energy, with the comment that, with your permission, he will have to leave after the intervention. We have also Mr. Sterian, CEO, Transgaz, Mr. Maximescu, Vice President of Regulatory and Corporate Public Affairs, OMV Petrom, Romania, Mr. Cosmin, Ghiță, General Manager, Nuclearelectrica, Romania, Mr. Ștefan Popescu, Deputy Director of Regulatory and Public Affairs, ENGIE, Romania. Please, Minister, you have the floor. Good morning and thank you for the invitation. Last year it was really raining heavily, and I think it was the same tent assembled. I'm here to tell you about the energy, the link between energy and the Black Sea, related to security, cooperation with strategic partners, European and American, about the fact that decarbonization without nuclear energy, and according to my opinion and to other ministers in the EU, is not possible. You can't... it's not possible. And that's why we really want to develop units 3 and 4 in Chernobyl. Then why not bring new innovating technologies in Romania in the nuclear field? We really take special focus to the offshore nuclear energy, rather mostly present in the North Sea area, and less here, but alongside Hidroelectrica will try to set up a partnership so that the first pilot wind farm offshore of at least 300 megawatts be in the Black Sea, in a partnership between Hidroelectrica and a strategic partner. We think of the Black Sea gas and the offshore platform. I don't see why not, together with the platforms in the Black Sea, we can develop offshore wind energy to have an infrastructure outside into the Black Sea, along the shore. Well, I've discussed with the Belgian Minister of Energy, and their idea of creating an energy island in the North Sea can also be replicated here. That the initiative of the 3 Seas with the Ministry of Energy in Bulgaria, and he was very open to an energy island in the Black Sea, a concept to really capture the entire wind production in the Black Sea and then to bring it onshore. If we speak of wind energy in the Black Sea area, we have to think of distributing it from the area. We are in a study with Transelectrica and Transgaz, and as you know, to take out the gas from the Black Sea, we need the gas pipeline in Tuzla to Timișoara. Since we're preparing that one, why not add a cable to transport electricity into continuous current from Tuzla to Timișoara, so that we can have a continuous current discharge in a varied setting of the energy that we are developing in the Black Sea, and of the energy that we want to continue to develop in the Dobroja area. Dobroja is already overcrowded. We're thinking of distributing energy from the Black Sea to the Republic of Moldova, our brothers there. The European regulation is changing. It's already approved in the Council of Ministers that European funds can go to investments in third countries, energy links to the European corridors. And why not link Republic of Moldova to Romania to the European corridor? To strengthen the transport network, to increase connectivity not just with Western Europe, but to also go toward the Republic of Moldova. The gas in the Black Sea, the offshore law, you will ask of this. Of course, this will be changed. We want that the Romgaz partners, if the Exxon procurement is done along with OMV Petrom, to decide next year on the investments so that we already have the first gas from the Black Sea in 2026 onshore that overlap with finalizing the investments in the NRRP, where we also have investments into natural gas to heat and generate also for thermal energy, for households also to switch from coal to gas, so to use as much gas as we can from the Black Sea to Romania, not to export it. You see how vulnerable Europe is to imported natural gas from the Russian Federation and what the prices are, given that the Ukraine transport route was slightly redirected. All of a sudden, we ended up with very high prices. This has to make us think and be ready to fight that. Romgaz, we've had a discussion with the Romgaz director yesterday, and you'll see soon gas wells that will be commissioned to increase the natural gas production of the Romanian producer, Romgaz. So we're thinking of everything. Another important component for our future policy is the hydrogen production. This fuel of the future, we decarbonize the transport network, transport and distribution of natural gas through the reconstruction and resilience plan. We've undertaken to build a pilot network or pipeline to distribute natural gas with up to 20% hydrogen in the mix. So this means that we want to bring the new technologies in Romania. We have money from the European Commission for this, alongside with the development of other technologies. We can produce natural electricity from natural gas with up to 30% hydrogen in the mix to reduce CO2 emissions. The main concern of energy for this year is to create new capacities to create electricity, to strengthen the transport grid, to develop the gas transport grid, and at the same time the distribution network for gas and energy to increase the Romanians' access level to natural gas. Romania is a gas producer, and I am convinced that, of course, if we don't find new sources of gas to exploit, you have the report that is on the market, and it's the ratio on the market. It's only natural to be where you don't bring anything else. You only have what is the current consumption. I'm sure we can introduce gas into this consumption from Romania. By the beginning of next year, we'll have the first molecule of gas from the Black Sea exploited by Black Sea oil and gas. It will be included in the national transport system, and will have mainly basically the first molecules of gas from the Black Sea, as I said, 1 billion cubic meter when it will be exploited extra from the Black Sea in that Doina perimeter. And in collaboration with our strategic partners, we're thinking of technologies both on renewables and on producing energy based on natural gas, that is to produce energy and produce it partially in Romania and turning Romania into a regional hub and putting Romania on the map of important technology players in the energy field. These are the main directions that we want to follow in Romania as far as energy goes. I do apologize for being shorter than I wanted to. I had a presentation, but I actually had to give it up. I will be just a couple of minutes to take questions from you. I can still stay for a couple of minutes, but then I have to leave because there's a meeting in Parliament. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. For sure, the information is very important, and as I said, I'm convinced that the questions of the audience will find answers, should there be any. Please. Hello, Minister. I am Bogdan Beneacă from New Strategy Center. With respect to offshore wind energy, to what extent can other investors bring their money apart from Hydroelectrica in this project, be it a wind farm, be it an island, as you mentioned? Thank you. Thank you for the question. I forgot to say something very important. We actually took a look at the offshore draft bill. We want to amend it a bit. This is already being discussed in Parliament. Some changes to remove aspects that I don't believe they should be there. I don't believe that the Authority for Mineral Resources should concess perimeters for energy. This is nothing to do with the resources, the mineral resources. So some small adjustments that we want to make, and we want to adopt an offshore law so that, as you said, we be able to tender perimeters and all the investors that want to do this. And believe me, there are very many. We've received many such requests in the ministry as well, to be able to invest more in the offshore energy in the Black Sea. Thank you, Minister. The next question, Mr. Ioan Meioniță, please. Hello, Minister. Two aspects. The first on the offshore law. What do you rely on when you say that it will be for sure approved? You've been governing for 2 years and the law is not any closer to being enacted, and you are now in a political crisis. So how certain is this enactment of the law that we've been waiting so much in the sector? Those of us interested in what is happening with the gas in the Black Sea. And can you tell us a bit about the boom in prices in energy, the bills that reached Romanian citizens in very high levels, and what can you do, what will you do to tackle this issue? With respect to the offshore law, I've said it since I came to government in 2019 that it should be a parliament project undertaken by all parliamentary groups, not an emergency ordinance. This continues to be my option, and I said that I want this law to have a consensus, or at least a broad majority, more than the parliament majority. And I was right to want this, because if we had this offshore law, it would be beyond the dispute of the political internal struggle, and I think this is how it should be. A law of a national importance for Romania should be like this, and it should not be included in the internal political battle. As I said, I'm sure this is how things will be. We will have a majority irrespective of what will happen with the political crisis, but it has to be a draft law in Parliament undertaken by the parliamentary groups. I'm ready to sign a draft bill alongside the management of all political groups that want to sign. And I'm not just referring to the current coalition, I'm referring to the Social Democrat Party as well, our party as well. It's a major project for Romania, and it has to be taken as such. And the political crisis in the period actually gives me says that I was right to want this. Imagine to have a project undertaken by only one political force in parliament, and now to have been in that struggle of a political internal fight. So I don't think that would have been well off. The offshore will go beyond this struggle, political struggle. With respect to prices, I just mentioned, yes, it's just a boom as a result or guided by the Russian Federation, by Gazprom, in my opinion, with respect to gas. One Nord Stream will be operational, will see a decrease in price. We also have the fact that as a result of Green Deal, the price of the CO2 certificate has brought an increase of about from 22 to 55 euro, which increased the price on the electricity market. All those, the others that do not use fossil energy, that use CO2, want it at the margin price on the market. That is why we see this boost. In link with the economic growth after the down period in the pandemic, it's quite a lot of consumption, both in energy and in gas. The consumption skyrocketed. Apart from the vulnerable consumers that I hope will be covered soon, we have for this winter two scenarios that we will be finalizing to compensate bills for gas and electricity up to the minimum guaranteed income or to the average average income or the average consumption. We speak of about 10 million Romanians that will receive an aid for their electricity and gas bills for this year, for this winter. Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister, for your answer. If you have any other questions. If not, thank you once again, Minister Popescu. We've changed a bit the format of the panel since we've taken questions after the intervention, in the sense that the minister has to leave, has to be in Parliament. Thank you, all the best. We will give the floor to the other speakers and then we'll take the questions at the end. So do allow us with this exception. I now ask Mr. Sterian, Transgaz CEO, to deliver the presentation. He also has prepared a map that I'm sure will catch our eye. Please. Hello, all guests, all participants. Thank you to the organizers for extending the invitation and have given me the privilege to be part of this panel with renowned specialists in the field. I have a lot to say, but I was told to be short, or at least to stick to my time slot. You see there a map. Who wants to have the map? You have a flash drive with the organizers that you will take it from. Here is the entire Transgaz transport infrastructure and all the projects that Trans has running. In the execution phase, and those two enter execution. The first project, the most important, is what you see in the northeastern part of the country with red up to Chișinău. So red up to Chișinău is the ENGIE duct, and with blue is Neșgherești-Bănescani gas duct. Here and up there in Roma near Iași. In maximum 10-15 days, we will finalize all works for this gasoduct, including two new compression stations in Onești and Gherești, where we are thinking in the period 27-30th of September to have a inauguration ceremony to commission this gas pipeline. In the northeastern part of the country, strengthens the gas supply to the northeastern part of the country, to Iași, Suceava, as some cities. From the discussions we've had so far, next week we'll settle on the interconnection agreement between Transgaz and the branch of Transgaz in Republic of Moldova. So Best Moldov, Transgaz Moldova, Transgaz Chișinău, to, or Chișinău, sorry, in this case, to export to Chișinău up to 6.5 million cubic meters. We are convinced that the current demand is about 5.45 million cubic meters a day. All depends on the new contract from the discussion that we've had last night with our counterparts in Chișinău. As I said, it depends on the contract between the Republic of Moldova and Transnistria, the old promise. We are ready. That's come 1st of October to start transporting gas in Chișinău that will provide, through the built capacities, the necessary consumption of the Republic of Moldova without Transnistria, which is about 1.2 billion cubic meters per year. The second gas pipeline that we are finalizing, and this is a premiere novelty, the gas ports in Vatra Dornei will be linked into the system, and the population with the central heating will have a different approach. We will no longer have what I saw, waste, pollution at the electrical power plant. In Cojorota, nearby Câmpul Lung Moldovenesc, this will be eliminated. So by the 1st of November, this will be possible. There's an issue there with the line crossing the river at Brat city. We'll have gas. At the 1st of November, we'll no longer see those house chimneys polluting the city through all that smoke. You can see the key on the map. It's very clear. As I mentioned already, the thermal power plants. For a year now, for Recaș and Mocren in Serbia has been on a standstill. We have already everything, the price readjustment, the documentation. The Serbian company counterpart of Transgaz has no longer been answering our emails or correspondence for a year now, and we've really tried to get in touch with them, but this was at the standstill already. With respect to the gas from the Black Sea and the Tuzla-Podișor gas pipeline, the tender is completed. The contract was signed in February with an international trust. The Ordinance 15 that came this week was quite welcome to readjust the prices. The prices on the stock exchange for the ton of metal have increased threefold, thus leading to an increase in costs. There are two suspension clauses there. We are ready. We either link into the start of the works because when concessionaires from the Black Sea will come to Transgaz to ask for a reservation of entry and exit of capacity, we'll tackle this issue. If things are postponed with the Black Sea, the trust, the consortium, will see to that. We are always we keep in contact all the time. Hopefully they don't give up and this does not force us to resume the tender. With respect to sources of gas, the Transgaz has at interconnection capacities with all neighboring countries except for Serbia, and I've just referred to the situation there. And we can deliver the required import gas for the winter through the neighboring countries, irrespective of Romania's consumption. But unfortunately, the production in Romania, if 2 or 3 years ago it was about 31 million cubic meters per day, nowadays 2.5, 2.8 million only. This was not covered by the Romanian producers by drilling new wells. And we see what happens. We depend more on the imported gas. But both in the Northern Europe, Central Europe, Eastern Europe, all the entire Balkan area, including Western Balkans, we are surrounded by Nord Stream 2 and Turkey Stream 2, which, with the competition of Bulgaria, a NATO member, an EU member, they built it. They've kept renaming it, but it was done, it was built. It was always the South Stream, basically. They didn't complete the interconnector, the Greece and Bulgaria. They've already 14 years into this situation now. A interconnector of 180 kilometers, a pipeline of 800 millimeters with a transport capacity in the first run of 3.5 billion cubic meters, still not connected. I read this morning the statement of a high official that next year in June. This is what happened every year. This has the impact that we see today, that the only source, including for Romania, is the same gas. That was the Trans-Balkan corridor, now Turkey Stream 2. Now, the same gas is in question. This interconnector was included in the PCI as well. This was funded through non-refundable European sources, but nobody asked us, because if this had happened in Transgaz, everybody would have had our heads for it, but that happened in Brussels. So that for you to know the situation with the prices. I have a lot of stories to tell you, but the time is limited. I am available at any time to tell you more. This led to not finalizing the interconnector between Stara Zagora with Lotini and Greece, so Bulgaria to Greece, thus not having access to the southern source of the Caspian Sea. Mr. Bogdan Nicolae, when he was advisor at that time, one of my advisors in Transgaz, was there to visit, and we've seen together the Comotini terminal that is very, very small with a low capacity, the other floating terminal just at a project phase. It's been like this for years on. 50% Gazprom and 20 the Bulgarian gas. You may draw your own conclusion with respect to the diversification of sources.
I would have liked to transport gas from various more numerous sources, but we are captive to this external source, and this is not the fault of anyone in Romania, starting with Transgaz or any other state entity. As for anything else, well, there is a lot I could tell about the Ukrainians, about the Russians, the Austrians, OMV, about the Bulgarians. But this panel should take about half day only for my speech, and I already have a coarse voice. Thank you for this snapshot, very clear snapshot and realistic presentation of the situation. I'm convinced the public will have questions. Thank you again, and I kindly ask now Mr. Alexandru Maximescu, Vice President of OMV Petrom Romania, to present his intervention. Thank you very much. We were here together 1 year ago, and we were talking about what has been discovered in the Black Sea about the Turks. And I was saying this should prompt us, so as we should initiate exploitation as soon as possible, so that the advantage we had and we still have, because the first offshore discoveries had been done in Romania before, and that would enable us to be the first to exploit these reserves. I look and see that progress has been made. I'm very happy about the minister, what the minister says, that Romgaz will finalize as soon as possible and take over this package from Neptune, and we will be in the position to start exploitation as soon as possible. We have very, very good cooperation with Romgaz. Our plans are very well aligned. The reserve will be operated by OMV Petrom. We signed an agreement with our Romgaz partners for such purposes. And what else is missing? The offshore law should be reviewed. The minister is right. This is the law is too important, and it will have impact for the next 20, 30, 40 years. So there must be a wide majority supporting this law. Hopefully in the second parliament session the law will be amended, and thus we will have all conditions so that the Black Sea investors can make a decision at the beginning of the next year. I remember 2018. Maybe I speak now about Mr. Sterian's expectations of having capacity reserve. In 2017, 2018, Exxon and Petrom back then did reserve this capacity because they were confident in the project. Unfortunately, the project could not be initiated. There was this requirement. Each company should have paid millions of euro if we did not move forward. I would step in. It didn't matter who the parties in the contract were. They had 24 hours available. They had guarantees for the guarantees for the collateral to get to the Transgaz account. So it didn't matter their name. It didn't matter whether Exxon or OMV, but they were very serious. They really honored their obligations, and we did pay the penalty to Transgaz. And this time we are looking forward to see all requirements met so that we can conclude a firm contract with Transgaz. Romania needs the Black Sea gas. Without the offshore gas, we will be more and more dependent on import gas. If we look at the Transgaz analysis, towards 2030, Romania, without the Black Sea gas, will import about 50% of the gas consumption needs. If we commence the project at the Black Sea, sometime in 2026 we will be able to have the first gas perimeter in Neptune to ensure the energy independence for Romania. Romania will be able, first of all, to satisfy their gas needs internally, and obviously if there are other needs, those quantities will be able to serve nearby markets in Moldova, Serbia, and any other neighboring countries. We looked how Transgaz developed the network, and we are very happy. Brua, I believe, is a model for every company in Romania. The project commenced on time, it was finalized on time, even with a lower budget than estimated, and we are then confident that once the investment decision is made, the project will be finalized on time, smoothly. If we look to the future, if we look what happens in Brussels, we see the European Commission accelerating the decarbonation project. This summer they released the communication on the package Fit for 55, a very ambitious package of the European Commission. There are many challenges for the member states in that package. What does it mean for Romania? There are many challenges, but I also believe there are many opportunities for Romania. We need to look very carefully to what will happen. We need to identify the opportunities for Romania, the technologies, the strength we have, and we need to try and take advantage as much as possible of what will come. The energy transition towards 2050 can be performed in Romania smoothly due to the very well balanced energy mix we have in Romania. Natural gas, nuclear, hydro. We have in front of us huge financial packages Romania can access, and they can serve to transform the energy sector in Romania. Just to mention two mentions, the Modernization Fund and the Just Transition Fund. Within 2 years they may transform the energy landscape in Romania. We look very carefully at these opportunities. We see many opportunities, and just to give you an example, when we speak of alternative fuels, biofuels, we see huge potential. Romania also have huge agricultural potential, and these two components combined may create a very, very healthy circular economy concept, so that we valorize the agricultural potential and create very performant biofuels and even export them. I will stop here because the time is limited, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you. Obviously, we still have always have this question: is it the time passing by, or is it we using the time? Thank you. Next, Mr. Cosmin Ghiță, General Manager, Nuclearelectrica. Hello, and thank you very much for inviting me to discuss about the opportunities in the energy sector at the Black Sea in this significant moment in time. Leaving aside the current projects, we are all witnessing basically a fourth industrial revolution, which focuses a lot on climate change and sustainable development. The Green Deal, the European Green Deal, which has been recently launched, should be seen in the global context of transition to technologies with low carbon. Why? Because this is a global problem. If we are polluting in Romania, we are creating problems across the globe, and we need to address both energy security and decarbonification and climate change. The European Union indeed is one of the global stakeholders who is most involved and most advanced in tackling a structure or a framework to try and address the issue. We know very well that the European Union is committed to reach emission neutrality by 2050 and reduce by 50% up to 2030. The United States of America are also engaged in decarbonization plans with a net zero emissions objective by 2050. It is important to have a global perspective because, as I mentioned, emission reduction is a global issue. So why shouldn't we try to level the scenarios to include technologies, to level the technology selection criteria, to level the issue at global level? If we look globally, the energy produced from nuclear sources is one of the main pillars to address both the goals of decarbonization reduction and to support the hydrogen production, which is the fuel of the future, and obviously to maintain security, energy supply security. When I speak about the global level, I think of the IPCC reports forecasting the need to basically double nuclear capacities to be able to support a balanced mix of renewables and gas and support the transition from the coal-based production, energy production. So globally, we are looking at these reports and optimal scenarios indicating a shift from 10% currently. And this is why I am looking forward to the COP26 meeting this year to see the results of this summit and how they will be transferred in the taxonomy. Romania has always have a very balanced energy mix, especially if we look at the energy plan. The CO2 emissions in Romania should be reduced by about 43.9%, and the dependence on energy imports should decrease from 20.8% today, almost 17%. We've had more rain and less consumption, so they should decrease by 2030. So the project Nuclearelectrica will implement both in terms of retechnologizing Unit 1, which will bring about production for 30 more years of the reactor in Nuclear 1, the development of reactors and finalizing reactors 3 and 4, where the works, the tender procedures will start within 2 weeks. So we are going to start tender procedures for the initial works until the identification of new locations where we should develop small modular reactors, and this technology is truly innovative. It relies on proven systems which work using submarine nuclear systems and other types of energy systems transposed into civil applications. And hopefully Romania will be able to become a regional production hub due to our advanced position, and possibly use this distribution chain from Candu, and why not more advanced technologies which are currently produced and developed, generation 4, in our research institute in Pitești. This is very advanced technology with very good synergies with waste management, waste resulting from the Candu technology. And Romania has a nuclear interest. Obviously, the agreement signed and ratified by the Parliament with the USA helps a lot in the development of such projects. The technology we are considering for USMR is the American technology, because they are the most advanced, and the financial support and capabilities, project management capabilities we've seen there, together with our technology providers, current traditional providers from Canada, and together with the European partners, I believe we can bring together an amazing consortium that would help us finalize the project as planned. I should mention that nuclear projects have proved in the past 10 years to exceed both budget and timeline, but I'm convinced that when we use such technology and supply chains which have already proven their efficiency, and we know very well, hopefully then we will be successful with our projects. I will stop here. I wanted to be brief, and I am available for any possible questions. Thank you for your attention. Thank you. I am sure that your intervention has generated major interest, and during the discussion sessions we will see discussions on the topic. Next, I will ask Mr. Ștefan Popescu, Deputy Director of ENGIE Romania, to be the last but not the least speaker in our panel. I am convinced that from the viewpoint of ENGIE Romania, what he is going to say will be of great interest for the audience, both present and online. I mentioned again, our conference is broadcasted live on the social media. Thank you. I am going to continue on the topic of the link between energy and security, and especially in this context of the challenge posed by the Green Deal. And as Cosmin mentioned, yes, Green Deal is an industrial revolution, and that means when we're speaking about industrial revolution, what does it mean? It's a phenomenon which goes beyond the energy field. It's much wider and beyond challenges. This is an opportunity to cover the gaps compared to the more developed countries, Western countries, but not only Western countries, but in the region, because it's obvious that countries in the region, Hungary, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, have taken significant steps. The success depends on our capacity to assimilate novelty, to assimilate such transformations, both as actors in the market and as society, because the countries which were not successful in the industrial revolutions in history have become peripheral and have lost their relevance in the international system. And there is huge pressure, because in the past, if we look historically, which is always helpful. In the past, an industrial revolution would take about 100 years, which meant that a country which was mainly agrarian, like Romania, Gusti's survey showed us in the past we had 80% of our population in the rural areas, but eventually we were able to catch up with the global trends and build up some sort of industrial base, which sometimes included top technologies if we look at the aviation and energy. But right now, an industrial revolution takes 30 years at most. Moreover, industrial partnerships, and this is what we don't understand, and I think that we need to reflect more on the European Union and surveys, because industrial partnerships tend to replace European political partnerships. Look at the words. We are talking about battery alliance, and alliance is a very political term, hydrogen alliance, and these cooperation formats, by the way, on the battery map, I haven't seen Romania yet. But such alliances will have governance. What will it look like? It will be a political governance, so it will create synergies within the European Union, which, as a specialist in prospective surveys, makes me think that the Industrial Revolution at the end of its very first stage, 2030, we'll have countries running at a certain speed, which are much more integrated due to their substantial participation in these industrial partnerships, and countries which are lagging behind because they are not part of these industrial partnerships. Indeed, Romania has many strengths to succeed, but also disadvantages. The first one, our structural incapacity to have long-term strategies. 2030, the moment when the first stage of the Green Deal and of the European green policies should turn into reality, minus 55% CO2 emissions. That is tomorrow. I don't know whether we are aware of what this shift means, and that activities should start changing right now with very clear targets if we want we want not to get to the point when in 2028 we realize that we have 2 more years to catch up with Europe, as we always do. And it's just like, that ideal we are chasing, and it's ever further. Romania has notable potential for energy resources. First of all, gas resources, which are, as the colleagues mentioned, vital in the transition, and hopefully the Black Sea gas will reach Romanian market very soon. But once there, we need to prepare the distribution networks, because 45% of the distribution networks must be modernized. We speak these should be hydrogen ready, while you have 45% of the network which is obsolete. You can only imagine that the modernization pace should be quite fast, because distribution is very important. How does it get from production to the final consumer? You need distribution, so distribution is fundamental for the success of the energy transition. I will continue on this note of energy security by saying that energy security, and indeed I was happy to hear Mr. Sterian mentioning so clearly the role energy may play in strengthening Romania's regional profile, but at the same time, I have to note that there is a huge competition among the countries. Each country wants to be a regional hub, so in the Central and Eastern Europe, we'll have tens of regional hubs. This is why you see nobody is giving anything for free. There is huge competition in connectivity project precisely due to this competition among European countries, and each of them wants to capitalize both on their resources and on their position due to their infrastructure with regional relevance. However, at the same time, we must mention that energy transition should not be separated from other segments of society, and any national energy strategy, we are still waiting for this to be finalized, but it can't be developed as a standalone. It must go hand in hand with the national industrial strategy, especially since the European funds mentioned by the colleague from OMV provide for opportunities to manufacture equipment, which should not be neglected. Everyone speaks of an increase in the energy consumption in 2030. How come? What's your base? We need to articulate our reflections on the energy system, and we need to link this with the demographics in Romania, because demography has an impact on the energy consumptions. When we have seen the data from the Statistics Institute, our population decreased by 150,000 inhabitants. So there will be impact if this trend continues. There will be impact on the economy and on the energy consumption. This is why we need to reflect more. Indeed, not only industry, but agriculture. My colleague from OMV also mentioned this. Agriculture may have a role in Romania. Indeed, Romania has a huge potential. Biomethane is less mentioned, but it has amazing virtues in the circular economy, in recycling organic waste. And also in the rural world, agriculturals may become very important actors in energy production, not only for the green energy, but also in the production of natural fertilizers. And why not? Romania should use this potential. And finally, energy security means one more thing, which means the presence in policy-making think tanks in Brussels. When you go to European institutions and you work with a Danish expert, and not only in political high positions, but in expert committees, because this is where European policies are created, European strategies are created, and then Romania's specificities may be revealed due to our participation there. This is why I plea for policy to have Romanians placed in European institutions, to have them participate in these collaborative structures. And why not cooperation between actors in the energy market in Romania, because regardless our roles as producers, distributors, I believe that our position should make us find the common points. We need to speak on the same voice and promote Romania's interests. Thank you very much. Thank you. Obviously, the topic of our panel is of great importance in Romania, especially recently from all viewpoints. We now enter the discussion part, the Q&A session. I would like to thank my panelists for their interventions, and while you are preparing your questions, I will kindly ask Mr. Sterian to add to his presentation.
I've listened to my previous speakers, especially the colleague in ENGIE, strategy, projects, future, what we do today, tomorrow, during the winter. We start with the Green Deal. Let me tell you that November will bring an invitation to the first specific pilot project in a small city in Transylvania of hydrogen injection. Of hydrogen injection in gas transport and distribution systems. Specifically, this is a specific, tangible situation. I wanted to go to other countries to speak with my counterparts to see what they did. Nobody took specific, concrete actions to see how hydrogen behaves while mixed with gas, how transport and distribution pipelines behave. So in November, you'll get the opportunity to see the first pilot project doing this. And the second, because you mentioned hub. By October, you'll get good news about the Romanian hub gear service. This will be the regional hub, a reconfiguration of the shareholders structure with Romanian entities, where, by law, changing law 123, Transgaz will operate the virtual trading point. From theory to practice, we have Mr. Sterian's invitation to have this pilot project in November, plus this hub, which are two pragmatic proposals that are very important and interesting. Please, comments, questions from the audience to the speakers. If I could take the liberty to ask Mr. Popescu a question. For a company like ENGIE, what does it entail to successfully have a transaction on the energy market in Romania? As I said, for us, this means modernizing the distribution networks. This is a very high stake. Romania has over 40,000 natural gas networks. We operate a little over 20,000, also in the north, covering 66% of the territory. So it's a very good coverage, although 2/3 of the population have access. So although not the entire population is connected, 2/3 of the population have access. So the distribution networks, not just in the natural gas area, not just ENGIE, but they have to be prepared for this energy transition because they have to be brought to or taken to the end consumer. Of course, this is not the only important aspect. We see the complex issues that exist. For example, the hydrogen injections. Once you increase the proportion very much, because you have 6, 8, 10% hydrogen in the network, it won't be too significant. But if this is increased, and it will increase, you need to change equipment from boilers, apartment heaters, entailing all sorts of documents. To be fit, all this equipment to be fit to use hydrogen, and then the calorific power of hydrogen is inferior to natural gas. Very many aspects need to be regulated, need to be tariffed accordingly. This is indeed a very complex issue, but for us, if I may say again, the distribution network and of course developing pilot projects matter. Being a French capital company, biomethane is very important. We see the agricultural potential that Romania has, and we aim to develop projects here. We will have a pilot project in Brașov to begin with, and we hope that we can develop biomethane-based projects. Thank you. Of course, these pilot projects are very important from micro to macro. You can extrapolate best practices once tested. Any other comments, please? Should you have them? Or any other curiosities? Something that you would like to ask to the panel speakers? If not, no worries. Thank you so much for the panelists' contributions. We have met the deadline, the allocated slot. We have a 15-minute coffee break, and then we continue with the conference sessions. Thank you very much to all.